And begin.
Hi, I'm Jacob Hemingway. I'm going to talk to you about the short story I wrote called The Blood Moon. And first I'm going to talk about what noir narrative stories actually are. And they're usually very dark, hard-boiled thrillers. And the hard-boiled detective usually has to make some sort of moral or personal choice in finding the solution. And the demands of justice are usually very high, the consequences are usually severe, which is especially apparent in my story. And the characteristics of a detective being an honorable person are often called into question.
There you go.
And the backdrop for my story, it's mid-18th century Jamestown in the American colonies. And the town is currently in crisis because there's been 5 murders already. And the magistrate, which is my protagonist in the story, he's in charge of finding what's going on. And many of the town's men are actually away fighting the Native Americans right now in the militia. So this sort of adds to the discomfort since there's no one there to protect them. And my detective, his name is Benjamin Blackhorse, and he served in the militia a few years with his cousin Arthur. And upon returning, he became the town's magistrate, which basically makes him in charge of all the legal matters in the town. So when these killings start happening, he's the one who has to investigate and find out what's going on. And he's constantly haunted by the things he did in the war. He has a strong PTSD, and there's actually a lot of mystery about what actually happened to him and Arthur during the war. There's been some rumors of crazy stuff they did to survive. And he tends to be very rash in his decisions, and he doesn't really think things through before he does them, but he still tries to hold up to his honor that he was taught as a child. And my story is told through his first-person experiences. And his sidekick. His sidekick is his cousin Arthur, and they both served together in the militia. And upon returning after the war, Arthur became a blacksmith in the town. And he's really the one man that Benjamin can really count on. He's the only one that he can trust. And when these killings start happening, Benjamin goes to Arthur and asks him for his help to see if he can help figure out what's going on. And Arthur he's a little bit more passive, he tends to think things through more. And he's also not haunted by his experiences as much as Benjamin is. He tends to handle his post-war better than Benjamin does. Alright, and my influences are the Sherlock Holmes stories. Basically what influenced me the most is the bond that Sherlock and Watson share. I tried to capture that as much as I could with my characters. I wanted them to work together really well and actually care about each other and trust each other. And another source that influenced me was the show called Salem. It's about the witch trials in the Salem, and I really like the protagonist in that show. He has a lot of characteristics that I admire, so I tried to capture that and put it in my Benjamin character. And Raymond Chandler's Simple Art of Murder was also a strong influence for me, especially when he talks about the people who commit the murder, that they have not just to provide a corpse, but they have a reason. And in this story, the witches, they need the blood of 7 innocent people in order to perform this ritual, which opens up like a portal from hell and releases a bunch of demons to the earth. So, and yeah. Alright, and the antagonists are the witches. And they turn out to be much closer than Benjamin and Arthur ever really thought. And because the main witch is actually their grandmother, Gloria, who was originally a witch in the Salem witch trials, but she managed to escape and set up a life in Jamestown. And another antagonist in the story is in fact Benjamin's mind. He's haunted by his war experiences, his PTSD. It's constantly affecting him as he's trying to figure out what's going on. And alright, and now I'm going to read an excerpt from my story. It's towards the end, towards the climax of the story, when Arthur and Benjamin confront Gloria and then start asking her a few questions. So, I can see by the looks on your faces that you must have finally figured it out. It took you long enough. Now you must be wondering why we killed all these people, right? Gloria asked us. Neither Arthur nor I said anything, but stared back into the faces of the ones we used to love. You see, boys, during the third full moon of the first year, midway through the century, the moon lines up in a way it never does any time else. If done properly, a gateway to hell can be opened for a short period of time. In order to open this gateway, a ritual must be done by the night of the full moon. 7 innocents must die. 6 of them must be female and 1 must be male. However, the ritual also requires the sacrifice of a traitor to complete the ritual. All the muscles in my body tensed as she said this, because I knew what she was talking about. She was talking about me, about what Arthur and I had done in the war. During a long and bloody battle, Arthur had gotten wounded. The Native Americans were advancing and all of our forces were pulling back. I couldn't leave him behind, so I grabbed him and threw him over my shoulders and started running out of there. I didn't make it far when an arrow grazed my leg. I collapsed, sending Arthur flying to the ground. The natives were bearing down on us fast. I drew my sword from his holster and turned to face the enemy. As soon as I turned, I caught a quick glimpse of a war club swinging towards my head. The next thing I knew, I woke up in a teepee with Arthur and there with me. The medicine man healed us and let us live with them. I never fully understood why, though. One day, our new village was attacked by militia. They killed indiscriminately. They didn't spare the women or the children and killed most of the rest of us. Only a handful of us survived and fled to the woods. The screams of the women and children still echo in my head till this day. The handful of us that survived ambushed the soldiers and slaughtered them all. Most of the members of the militia were from Jamestown. They were people I knew my whole life. I was the traitor whose blood they needed. I was the last piece of the puzzle. I'll call all of you witches if it's the last thing I do, Arthur said. Well, you see, that's where the problem is. To do that, you'd have to kill yourself too, Gloria replied. What are you talking about, I asked. You're both witches, she said with a laugh. That's not possible, Arthur exclaimed. You obviously don't know how this whole system works then. Those people born of witches are automatically witches themselves. I was a witch when your parents were born, which makes them witches. Then when you were born, you became witches yourself, she said with a vile laugh. I was speechless. We were the very things that we stood to protect. I looked at Arthur and he had a look on his face I'd never seen before. It was a look of deep sadness and failure. As I saw this, he drew his sword, turned it in his hand, and that's it. So, I just really wanted to capture the sort of bond that Arthur and Benjamin had, and thank you for listening.